What is a word made of?
Well, are you thinking letters?
Yes, I am.
I like that. I like that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be here all week.
Yeah. I sprained a few brain cells coming up with that one. I should have stretched earlier. But so letters make up words. Words make up sentences and phrases and expressions and shows and conversations. And we have so many wonderful words from our fans that have shared some of their love of the show or other things that we might have done. Certainly there's a few about how awesome your music is. And we love to do these episodes where we get a chance to reflect back the kind of awesomeness that you guys put our direction. So
yeah, it's very humbling. It's very flattering. We do so much work where we're not in front of an audience. When we're working in the booth on the voiceover stuff or whatever.
Right.
Aside from my music stuff, but so when we meet fans at conventions and they tell us they're enjoying the podcast or they love the shows we were on, that's really the first time we have that kind of interaction. So when we work so hard doing the podcast and other things, reading the fan mail, it just is like, oh well, there are people listening and they are getting something from that. So it feels really good. It's very humbling.
Yeah, so much so. And actually I heard Harrison Ford, who I grew up admiring, he didn't like the word fans. He never had liked the word fans. He preferred the term customers. And
Okay.
But I think he meant that in a good way, not in a distancing way, right? I think he was uncomfortable with fans felt like that was too much,
that being short for fanatic.
That he shouldn't be praised.
Right.
Yeah,
of course. Well, I guess customer also kind of makes me think like you're only paying for something, right? I mean,
well, but I think the way he meant it was that he has a duty. Right, he has a responsibility to make sure his work is worth, what the customers expect.
I like that,
right?
And I like him too, so we'll go with that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I'm ready to dive into these letters from our fans or customers.
Yes.
All right. And just to remind our listeners, we sometimes read the whole letter, but sometimes we abbreviate it. And please don't take offense if you've written something to us and we didn't read every single letter of every single word. But please understand that's just so we can fit some other letters in and include more of the people who had stuff to say. And we also won't disclose surnames, last names. We will refer to people by the first name that they gave in their letter. And if we make any mistakes in terms of pronouns or pronunciations, please forgive us. We're doing our best.
Yes.
All right. So, what do you say, Eric?
I say, let's get to it.
Welcome to the Heart of the Cards, a conversation about creativity, inspiration, and dealing with what we're dealt.
Hey, this is Dan Green.
And Eric Stuart.
And this is episode 30 of the Heart of the Cards.
Nice. What are we doing today?
Yes. Well, as we teased at the top, we're doing our letters.
Yes, letters from the consumers.
From the consumers, the customers.
Yes.
Yes.
Whatever
the fans, letters that form words, that form statements. And yeah, let's dig into it. All right. Well, Eric, why don't you start off with our first one?
Sure. I'm going to read this one from Brit.
Yes.
Okay, so Brit writes, "Hi, Dan and Eric," and with a lovely smile. Yeah, and a
little smiley face.
Smiley face. I like that. Thank you. I am Brit, and I am from Belgium. I have watched Yu-Gi-Oh! All my life now, basically, and it helped me and my sister deal with a lot of stuff as children. When we were small, we had to tell our dad we didn't want to see him anymore because of his new wife. She basically bullied us out of his life. But Yu-Gi-Oh! And also Pokemon made me think of all the fun times we had with him watching those shows in the morning and eating cereal, playing with the cards we got from him. We even got a KC dual disc to play with and loved it. KC being Kaiba Corp, thank you very much. But sadly, we don't see him anymore. We tried meeting up to make a connection after a few years, but he didn't seem to care that much, so we had to go forward only with the memories we had. Well, that's unfortunate. But still, to this day, me and my sister bond over Yu-Gi-Oh! Every day. She is a big Kaiba fan, and Eric even made a video once on Cameo. Yeah, that's true. For those of you who don't know Cameo, it's a fun sort of shout-out video app, and I love doing that stuff for the fans. It's fun. It's fun to do. So that's a little side note there. That's not in the letter. I think she also has every Blue Eyes figure possible. I think it's the best dragon. Well, that's true. I love both of you. I don't have a favorite. I love both your voice acting. Yugi and Atem, also Entei, is very nostalgic for me. Then there's Mr. Kaiba himself, and Brock, of course. I could listen to Dan's voice all day telling me stories. That's funny. I do the same thing. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for giving people so much more than just a cartoon and also listening to us and caring about the people that respect you and look up to you. I wish I could meet you at a convention here in Belgium one day and give you a big hug and thank you in person and tell you what Yu-Gi-Oh! Means to me. Please consider it for all the people here that want to meet you. Anyway, I'm sorry for the long letter. Well, that's okay. I just wanted to tell you guys my story. Much love, Brit. Wow, Brit. That is
so generous.
Yes, thank you for sharing all of that. I'm sorry that you had some tough times in the family dynamic. I don't walk in your shoes, but I can relate to what you're dealing with. But I'm glad that you're finding the positive side and sharing these memories, the good times you had, especially sharing that with your sister. And thank you for that letter. That's very kind.
Yeah, Eric and I can both relate to a degree of the problem of absent fathers for different reasons. It's so unfortunate, the circumstances that you describe, because this idea that your father would choose somebody who was bullying you and then that sacrificed, the relationship entirely. That's really sad. And this is kind of also emblematic of a lot of the stuff that we get from fans as well. And this is not a complaint by any means. Heartfelt stories can tear you up a little bit,
Yeah.
Tragic and sad elements of anybody's life. And it sounds like Brit's okay and on his feet and has moved forward, but it's still a heartbreaking element to what's being shared there. But I think that's great that fans feel like they can share those kinds of things with us.
Yeah, and honestly, Brit making the extension of the olive branch to try to make that connection again. Yeah. So you did what was right for you. And, you're not responsible for the reaction from your father.
Well said.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all of that, Brit. And good luck moving forward. All right, so this next letter is from Michael. Hi there, Eric and Dan.
Hey.
My name is Michael. Hey. I've been a big fan of yours through the show Yu-Gi-Oh! And later on through Pokemon, which I learned you two did some voices on there as well. Though the both of you might be icons in the business of anime, I've been able to connect with a character on the show who I see myself in, same as my play style in the game. I look forward to seeing you both at Collecticon 2023 in Dallas-Fort Worth area and getting my picture with you both. You know what? Okay, so that was a great Collecticon.
Yes, it was.
I really enjoyed, we were in that area for a very brief period of time, but it was a really good time.
Yeah.
And I love what Michael's saying about seeing himself in one of the characters.
Yeah.
Who were some of the characters that you had that experience with when you were a kid?
Oh my goodness! Well, I mean, the top of the list is always Batman. I mean that was one of my favorites because I really thought he was just a human, and I liked that.
Right.
I was never really drawn to the superpower ones. I mean, I liked Superman, but Batman was real, and also I was a big Spider-Man fan.
Sure.
That was one of I think also because of the sort of the athletic side of it. I felt like I could do Spider-Man type things.
Yeah.
Crab
It's
walk
really
up a
fun
wall.
to imagine the way that he moves
like in
and-
the
yeah, yeah,
hallway, I
for
would
sure.
I would do that all the time. Yeah. How about you?
That's awesome. Those two figure actually pretty prominently as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think Spider-Man for me edged out Batman a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but we mentioned Harrison Ford earlier. Indiana Jones was, and not that I thought that I was like these guys necessarily, but that that the idea that I could become like those guys,
Sure.
the inspirational character.
Sure.
But Michael was saying that the character he identifies with also is reflected in his play style. So obviously he's a real duelist, unlike you and I. He goes on to say about sharing an item that he has from his own collection, which is also another incredible thing that fans do. I feel so unworthy, but I try to put pictures of some of that stuff up on my socials, just again to sort of share back with the community.
Yeah, I've actually adorned my my backpack with as many keychains and characters that I've been given. It's got I jingle and jangle as I walk through the airport.
Security just rolls their eyes.
Yes.
I wore a T-shirt recently from a guy who does this amazing fan art, and those are always wonderful things to receive. Well, Michael, thank you for your kind letter, and yes, connecting at the conventions is always a wonderful thing to do, and we look forward to making some more appearances with Collecticon. All right, what's next, Eric?
Well, the next one we've got is from Jack. What Jack wants to know about is Ash Ketchum. Okay, I'll see if I can answer this question, or both of us can answer this question.
Yes.
Hi, Dan and Eric. All right, fine. So you're included in this answer now. You can't run away.
No!
I've been a massive fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! Since I was a kid, and in the last few years, I have really gotten into Pokemon. So I have gone back and watched some of the earlier seasons of Pokemon, such as Indigo League, Gold and Silver, and Ruby and Sapphire. Okay. I think both of you are brilliant in all the roles you perform across both shows, including others such as Sonic X and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But the reason I am getting in touch today is to ask your thoughts on Ash being written out of the Pokemon anime after 25 years. You were both there in the beginning when Ash was first making waves in Kanto and Johto, so I imagine it must be surreal to see him bow out after all this time, and I'm so pleased that he'll be doing it with Misty and Brock at his side. Sadly, I know Eric isn't voicing him, but he will always be Brock to me, even as someone who came to the show so late in life. Well, that's true. Keep making amazing content, guys. What you're doing is fantastic.
So nice.
Thank you, Jack. So my take on all of this is, I don't really think that characters ever really leave, like, their story, right? It's really just, this chapter is done. So will Ash continue his journey? Probably. Will we be following him? Probably not for the time being. But I don't know. I just think these are the kind of characters that they're always existing. And if maybe this season, this long series of seasons wraps up in terms of him possibly winning, which is great, I just don't think he's really saying goodbye. Because you can always revisit it, too. It's like you were just mentioning, Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones. I could go and watch the first movie again. He's still there.
Right.
It's like these characters, and even if it was a one movie series, he would still be doing something, right? That's what I mean. That's how I look at characters like this. So that's my answer for Ash moving on. I don't think he really moved on. I think he's just continuing.
Yeah, it's a character who lives somewhere else that you're not looking at right now. Right?
Yeah.
And you and I both have experience being written out of a series with Yu-Gi-Oh! In a sense,
Yep.
But those characters come back.
Sure.
And we're always happy to reprise them when they do. But I understand the attachment. And having a character around for you like that for 25 years, which is not precisely the experience of Jack, who's written this letter. Some people it is.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine what that's like. I mean, again, Spider-Man, Batman, Indiana Jones, they were all recently in movies,
Yeah.
this year. So they're around, but and they've, been a part of my heart, in a sense, for well over 25 years. But it's not like having the show continually on all that time.
True.
True. So I understand it's disturbing to have something taken, or something that you're always used to having around is no longer there. That's a little unsettling.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of the cartoons that we grew up watching, I think of Bugs Bunny. Like,
Sure.
Bugs, there were episodes that, featured Elmer Fudd or Porky Pig and things like that where it's like, okay, Bugs isn't there, but we know he's still around. But they never, like, those series never really ended. Bugs didn't walk off into the sunset.
Right.
I don't know that you need to do that with these kinds of stories.
I agree. So I guess in a way what we're saying is Ash is still out there, and hopefully someday we'll all get a chance to reconnect with what he's been up to lately.
Yeah, great letter too.
Yeah, very good. Our next letter is from Rose of Pollux. Rose writes, "Hi, Dan and Eric. Showing my age here, but I've been following Eric since Pokemon hit the U.S. way back when.
Oh, you're
And
very
following
old.
Dan-
Very old.
I'm amazed they figured out how to use a computer. And following Dan since his entry into the series. It was on account of hearing your familiar voices that I was curious enough to try out Yu-Gi-Oh! And found another great story to follow. That's nice to hear.
Yeah.
I've been a writer since I was 4 years old.
Wow.
And when I was 11 and was introduced to Pokemon, the characters and the scope of the adventures were too alluring to ignore. I started writing fan fiction at that point for Pokemon. This eventually extended to Yu-Gi-Oh! And then on to several other fandoms, some of which I'm still active in and still write stories for and post online for others to read and enjoy.
Very cool.
I've also been trying to write original work, but it's here I come across some hurdles, the main one being a reluctance to get my own work out there. I've been sitting on a YA sci-fi fantasy novel. It literally combines both genres. I have, for example, winged alien crocodiles that serve as my story's dragons. That I've completed the first edit of nearly 10 years ago, and my current in-progress project that is very dear to my heart is a Western with LGBTQIA+ themes. In fact, one of the supporting characters is trans in honor of your late colleague Maddie Blaustein, who, like yourselves, was a large part of my formative years. I can only hope that she would have been pleased to have inspired part of this story where learning to accept oneself is a central theme. In both cases, I'm so protective of these projects that I'm reluctant to take the next step in finding a publisher and getting them out there, despite being able to post fan fiction without a second thought. And I'm sure it's because my original projects are so much more personal. My question is, as you have both experienced bringing other people's projects to life as well as your own personal projects, did you ever find yourselves gripped with a reluctance to let your own work out there? And if so, how did you overcome that? Thanks so much, Rose of Pollux.
Wow. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Yeah. And thank you.
Cool sounding ideas, by the way,
Yeah.
first off.
Yeah. And
Cool sounding ideas. Keep it that.
And I love the nod to Maddie. She would appreciate that. She'd also probably ask you to play the lead character because no one else could do it better, she would tell you.
Yes, it's true.
Well, if I may, I would
Please.
like to answer this one first. So my songwriting is all personal, even though I'm not only, I'm not singing just about myself. I am. I'm singing about experiences that I can relate to that I hope other people will be able to make their quote-unquote own, right? So if you're reluctant about sharing these writings because they are so personal to you, well, sharing that is a fantastic experience. I probably the greatest compliment I get as a songwriter is you are singing something that is part of my life. It's the soundtrack to my life. It's that story you told is, were you actually there? Because I can relate to that. And that's important as an artist, is to make somebody actually feel something. So I would not feel that you should hold back. I think the exact opposite. I think that if these things are so meaningful to you, they're probably very powerful. And they're probably written with such passion and heart that it's probably your best work.
Yeah, and I forget who said it, but when you're being creative, and by that I mean pursuing something genuinely unique to your perspective and how you can convey that in whatever creative form you're working with, you're going to get uncomfortable. I think David Bowie said something about likening it to swimming, and it's like you want to swim in the part of the pool where you're uncomfortable, where you don't necessarily feel whatever the bottom of the pool against your feet,
Right.
And putting your personal elements into something is what makes it different than just generic content.
Mm-hmm.
We hear that word so much lately, and there's a lot of examples of stuff that really just feels like stuff to fill space,
Yes.
as opposed to a compelling story. And certainly I've performed on material that doesn't aspire to be art, that is perhaps just that, content. But addressing the struggle that you're facing here, like Eric said, yeah, you got to just put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it feeling uncomfortable is an indication that you're saying something that is meaningful.
Yeah. I look at I'm working on some new songs right now, and I'm constantly tweaking and I'm making little adjustments here and whatever. But I also know that once I put it out there in the real world, the paint is dry. I mean, it's
Right.
like I
Right.
can't tweak it anymore. So I have to let it go. And that's actually something that I dread before I do it, and then something I feel relief in after I do it, so that I can
So
just go,
true.
I'm done.
So
I'm
true.
just done with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. So stick with it, Rose of Pollux.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think also that idea of, slaying the dragon, right, to evoke some of our hero's journey references. Yeah, it's scary. It's scary. All right, what's next?
Well, we have a letter from Sarah.
Sarah.
Yes, Sarah says, Dan and Eric, that's us. Your characters are quite amazing. Oh, thank you, Sarah. They inspire many and helped others through tough times. Me and my brother are fans of both Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime and cartoons have helped me through the hell I've been through my whole life. Bullying, loneliness, and loss. Oh, man, I'm sorry to hear that. Yugi and Atem are one of the many characters that helped me move forward through the challenges in life. Thank you guys for the voices and inspiration that you provide, and I hope to see you guys. Maybe at a con in Connecticut. Yeah, that would be cool. Well, thank you, Sarah. I am first of all, I'm sorry that you have had a tough journey. I do appreciate the compliment that our characters and our performances have helped you, but as both Dan and I have been known to say, we appreciate that, but you're the one who got yourself through this stuff, and we were along for the ride. So we're glad to have been there with you, but take credit for that's you. But we hear this a lot, and it isn't just a cartoon to us, even as the actors. We feel very connected to these characters, the storylines, the friendships that are there. We take it very seriously, and we understand as both. I speak for myself here, but growing up where we're sort of trying to find ourselves as kids, we do gravitate towards these characters in shows and movies. They do become our friends, our family, and even in books, these are things that can help us try to figure things out. So, but thank you for this. Yes, thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, and to back up and just reflect off of some of the things that Eric just said, when you have something that helps to get you through, it's easy to think that thing has the power. But that power is in you. And it's finding a goal. It's finding a way of imagining yourself through a situation that helps to get you through. I shared previously on a couple of episodes, I think, that I nearly threw away my college education simply because I wasn't doing my homework. And I had to do a lot of things to convince the dean that I was worth not throwing out. And so I think for the week or so that I had to get all that together and then actually have the meeting, I never went a day without wearing a fedora that helped me feel a little bit more like Indiana Jones.
I love it.
And I'm in like my early 20s at this point, right? But it helped, you know? So I get how having that portal to a better place, seeing yourself through a character that you admire or connect to, can help to get you through. But it's true, you're the one actually making those steps, every single one of them. And we are flattered to be a part of something that means so much to so many people.
Mm-hmm.
For us, our relationship to the character at the time we recorded it, is even very different than our relationship to the character now, because now we have a whole different context and have met so many different people. And so those characters mean something to us too. But even so, I still look for that kind of inspiration for outside of characters I've portrayed. I think you need that little bit of distance, right? Because you don't quite see it in yourself. Exactly. But thanks for sharing that, Sarah. And I hope that you have better days ahead. All right. And our next letter is from Haley. And it's a bit of a longer one, but I think Haley has a lot of good stuff to say.
Mm-hmm.
So it starts with, Dear Dan and Eric, Hi.
Hi.
My name is Haley. Hi. And I am nearly 30 years old from New Jersey, but currently living abroad in Europe. Growing up, I was always the weird girl in high school. Growing up, I was always the weird girl in school. I was still loving boy bands that had disbanded a few years prior, listening to a mixture of classic rock CDs and Broadway musical theater scores. I was one of, if not the only girl in my classes, who openly loved Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon. I can remember walking home from school with my aunt and heading into the kitchen to do homework, but first I had to turn on the TV in the room to watch the block of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon episodes that was airing on Kids WB. While my favorite character out of Yu-Gi-Oh! Was Taya Gardner, because she dreamed of being a dancer like I did growing up, I always loved the dynamics of the growth of Yugi and Seto throughout the 5 seasons. The moment Seto called Yugi the true king of games in the final season always resonated with me as the full circle moment for both of their character arcs. Over the last 21, nearing 22 years, the two of you have been consistent voices in my life. I know you always hear the phrase, you were the voices of my childhood. But for me, you weren't just the voices of my childhood, but the voices of my teenage years and the voices of my current adult life, too. I will do the full rewatches of Yu-Gi-Oh!, including the 3 films, go back to classic Pokemon episodes and certain movies, and I still laugh at the same exact moments every time. My fiancé is also a huge Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Fan, and during the early days of our relationship, we would watch episodes together, and almost 9 years later of our relationship, he will join me in those rewatches now. He also loves songs off of My Kind of Danger, which was one of my top-played albums of late 2018, early 2019. I don't know if you will read or respond to this letter, but if you do read it, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything. Thank you for still working in any way possible, and thank you for still wanting the fans and the fandoms to reach out to you. I hope I can thank the two of you in person should you ever go overseas for a con in London and or the Netherlands. I hope you two have an amazing year of content creating and podcasts ahead. Thank you as always, and all the love, Haley.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Haley.
Wow.
Yeah. My goodness.
So, a lot of stuff about what we were just talking about with the Ash Ketchum situation.
Exactly.
A continuance of staying attached to a certain show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have shows I will regularly go to when I need a little something more that day, or like when I have trouble sleeping at night. Batman the Animated Series.
There you go.
Or maybe the original Star Trek.
Right. Yeah, and I love that Haley is revisiting the shows, laughing at the same jokes, but I also think finding like new elements each time you revisit it. It's the same. It's same sort of thing. Like if you watch it when you're 10 and then you watch it when you're 20, those two different people are going to get something different from it. Same
For sure.
enjoyment, but you might be digging deeper. Same thing with listening to a song. Maybe that second time you catch something you didn't, or it means something different to you because of where you are in your life. But I love that, and thank you. I do appreciate the nod to my album, My Kind of Danger. I was just listening to something off of that the other day. Yes, I do listen to my own music. I sometimes have to go back and listen to old things just to make sure that I am doing the right thing with my life. But no, thank you, and and it's great that Haley's able to share this experience too. Haley's fiance is also a fan of these shows. That's good.
Yeah,
when there's something that you share in common like that, or even introducing someone who doesn't know the things you like, that's also fun too.
Yeah. Having that to share is important. A few years into my relationship with the woman who became my wife, the reboot of Battlestar Galactica came out. Maybe it was even just a couple of years. And when she was down with watching that with me, I'm like, I chose well.
Yes. Right? I'm still working on 80s music with my wife, Lindsay, because she even teased me about that today. She's like, if we're going to take a long drive together, I don't know if I can take that many hours of listening to 70s and 80s rock. I'm like, I listen to other things sometimes.
Shared interests is important.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for that, Haley. And what do we have next, Eric?
So the next letter we have is from Rhea. And Rhea says, Hello, Rhea. I watched Yu-Gi-Oh! Later in life during finals at a particularly stuffy liberal arts college. Is there any other kind?
That would frown upon anime. Right.
Although I didn't grow up with it like many other fans did, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has proven very important to me as a refuge from academic pressure. It was exactly what I needed during that time. I watched GX first, and its school setting was so comforting to me with characters like Jaden, who had no interest in school, that's what I always said, and Zane, who burned out at the same age I did. I saw on Twitter you mentioned potentially getting Matt on the show, and I hope that works out. Yeah, that would be a good guest to have.
That'd be
we
great.
love Matt Laberto. I did, however, grow up with Pokemon, and Eric's voice played a tremendous role in my childhood. James was my favorite character. Why, thank you. I have vivid memories of mimicking James's lines and silly noises with my best friend. Silly noises? You mean his laugh. Which would not have been half as amusing without Eric's interpretations. Wow, thank you. That's very flattering. Now that I am an adult who encountered Yu-Gi-Oh!, Yami is my favorite character, and Dan's voice is equally important to me, but in a very different way. This may seem a bit ridiculous, but I learned this strategy in therapy. When I have thoughts of self-injury, I picture Yami holding up a stop sign and shouting, "Stop!" Believe it or not, it works quite well, and I have Dan's voice to thank for those times I kept myself safe. If you ever set up a cameo, or any way for supporters to pay to hear an encouraging line or two, I would be delighted. Thank you so much for your contributions to so many lives. I believe the shows wouldn't be the same without you two. Take care. Best, Rhea. Wow.
There we go again.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know how you would respond to that. I mean, your voice, I know you said it earlier that they're the people that have the power, but that's some praise right there. I mean, wow.
I never thought I had that voice to portray until that character. Sometimes I would do impressions of, characters that you like. And there's a little bit of Jean-Luc Picard. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of Patrick Stewart in Yami.
Yep.
And I also had the privilege of working on a show, a production of Othello. They would do Shakespeare in the Summers at Rutgers, and Avery Brooks, who was also later went on to work on Star Trek and Deep Space Nine, had such a commanding presence and voice. My God, you could hear him resonate across the street. And so I was borrowing from things that I thought fit the character more than feeling like those things were naturally a part of me. So I do think of, the Pharaoh as somebody who is not me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I understand that sense of if I help to provide that sense, I guess, of authority in this example, then I did my job.
Yeah.
And it is, I think, helpful to have characters who have that sense of command. This is implying somebody who's dealing with a lot of really serious self-destructive issues, and hopefully not life-threatening.
Mm-hmm.
You can be self-destructive in a lot of different ways. Take it from me, I know.
Yeah.
But I mean, self-injury. That's an area that is its own category. And we were talking recently about doing an episode focusing more on this kind of thing, because a lot of people struggle with it, and they shouldn't feel like that's a struggle they can't win or that they have to face alone.
Right.
Yeah,
I think,
but,
and talking about this,
yeah.
Gets people to understand that hopefully that there are people out there that are there to listen, and that and that this is not you're not the only person who is dealing with stuff, so don't feel like
Right.
you can't talk about that. I will say, going to the comment about the voice and the character, this is me praising you a little bit. So I do
okay.
I do believe that Atem, the Pharaoh, because of the character he is, in that fatherly figure, in that because of the goodness that he conveys, I think that works for something like this message. But on top of that, your performance with that character solidifies that. And I've been asked what other
Thanks.
roles I'd want to play on Yu-Gi-Oh! And of course, my stock answer is I would have loved to have played the Pharaoh, but I don't think that it would have been as good as what you do. I think that the casting in that show is all dead on. It's right. It's right for those characters, and what you do with him, I could see this being a tool for someone to say, I'm going to use that voice from that character to help me get through this. And I think it has a lot to do with who's performing it.
Well, that's very kind. And thank you for that. I also don't think I would do nearly as well with Seto Kaiba. But a thing that just occurred to me was the American dub. Obviously, we've commented before about how the Pharaoh is much different than in the original Japanese, and was sort of even pushed further in that lower, deeper direction as the series progressed. But I guess maybe part of that creates the father-son dynamic that may not exist. I'm not sure. I can't experience this, fresh for the first time in another language. But where it's not older and younger, right? When other interpretations, where they're more, Yami and Yugi are the same age or a similar age, right? I could see that being, more like big brother, younger brother kind of thing. So maybe that. I mean, when you think of a character as being the mature one who has the authority to tell you what to do, I think that lends to the sense of authority itself. So,
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
Good luck to you, Rhea. And if something I've done helps to get you through these times, I couldn't be more grateful. All right, let's move on to our next wonderful letter. And this is from Mandy. Oh, Mandy. Yes. A very devoted fan and also diligent on the socials. So, Mandy says, with growing up with Yu-Gi-Oh! And now being 33 years old and living in California, I will say the show has taught me a lot on friendships and standing up for myself and for my loved ones. I met so many awesome people, one being my best friend, who I think of as a sister. She even did a lot for me and read my letter to Dan at a convention in 2022 when she didn't have to. That was sweet. I remember we planned so many things before the convention in April of that year until we thought of writing a letter. I remember taking a picture of my cat cuddling with my Atem plush and sending it to her, and she laughed, saying she would show that and thought it would be a cute picture to show. Yugi/Atem and Kaiba taught me so much throughout my years of growing up, and I was bullied in school for my autism, but I never let that stop me from being who I am today. I do deal with depression, and the show, along with the cards and this podcast, have helped me open up more to people, and even the love of my life has also helped me, who I met through Yu-Gi-Oh! I just want to say I thank both Dan and Eric. Keep being awesome, and I love you guys. Well.
Oh, wow.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Getting a little beklempt.
Yeah,
here.
I know. I mean, it's just so humbling, and I know I use that word a lot, but like every time we hear these stories, it's incredible. I mean, we are emotional people. This is,
Yeah.
I cry at Hallmark commercials to this day.
Me too.
But this is it just tells us again, so many people are dealing with depression and challenges and struggles
And being bullied.
and being
That
bullied.
comes up a lot. We hear a lot about that.
I just, I feel like, I don't want to say I feel sorry for the bullies, but I do. I feel like there must be something about why would you give somebody a hard time because they, either they're on the spectrum or they like a card game or they watch a cartoon. I mean, but come on, people, really. But it's amazing to me how many of our fans have expressed this type of environment that they've been part of, which is it's frustrating to hear. Which is, when you do, and if you do get a chance to go to a convention, and get to be surrounded by so many supportive, like-minded, accepting people. I've said this,
Which is really the magic of a convention.
Yeah, and I've said this. It's like a template of how we should just behave in real life. You're missing out. Like, so if you're having second thoughts, like, I don't know if I'm really into that or whatever, but you're like, you might be feeling that you're alone. If there's a convention in town, just go for one day, go for an hour, and just see if it makes you feel a little bit more part of a really supportive community, because that is, to me, it's just a great experience as someone that goes there as a guest. But I'm also a big gamer geek, as I've talked about. I'm a geek. I'm a nerd. I am that too. And that's normal. So there are places you can go where you maybe can avoid those bullies.
Yes, you'll feel like you're meeting strangers who are a part of your family. Your best friends that you've only just met. So I wanted to say a little bit more about that bullying thing, and you're right to say that I wanted to touch base on that bullying thing just a little bit more. What's wrong with those bullies is very often motivated by fear. And picking on someone is just another way of making yourself feel more than, better than, more powerful than, certainly. And that's indicative of somebody being afraid that they aren't powerful enough. Maybe they are aware on some level that they have weaknesses inside. But especially during those school years, there's a lot of concern about the social hierarchy. And are you cool or are you not? Are you in or are you out? Are you this or are you enough of that? And that social pressure, I think, also fuels a lot. It heightens all of those anxieties. And typically, most abusive, threatening behavior is somehow motivated by fear. So keep that in mind.
Yes.
If that's helpful.
Yes.
I commend you for getting through those times, and also you're such a great fan. I'm so grateful to have you as part of this community. So thanks again.
All right. So the next letter we have is from Chris. He has a letter for the Heart of the Cards. I like that. Very formal. Hey, Eric and Dan. Hey. Thank you so much for sharing your stories with us on the podcast this year. Dan, I had the pleasure of getting to interview you for a school project over a decade ago and took one of your classes when I was first starting my voiceover career. Oh, look at that.
And Chris is working regularly, so
nice.
Good for him.
Eric, I got to speak with you briefly at one of the first conventions that I guested at, and you kindly signed a bunch of stuff for some friends of mine. Okay, I'm old. I don't remember that one specifically, but I'm sure it was a fantastic experience. I moved to Los Angeles about 8 years ago to pursue animation and acting, but I came from New York originally when I went to SVA, right around the corner of 4Kids. Oh, okay. That's where we made all the cartoons, in the factory, as I like to call it. I didn't get the chance to meet a lot of the folks in the East Coast voice acting pool, and I had always really wanted to. Learning more about your personal lives and your struggles as fellow artists and creatives has been really inspiring, and it's kept me company during long work nights and long workouts in the morning. Well, good for you for working out. I loved Yu-Gi-Oh! And all the stuff you guys did in the anime world back in the day, but I'm just as excited about what you guys are doing here and now. Hope to see Crossing the Gods down the line, and hopefully that manga dub that was teased a little bit ago. Yeah, we'd like that too. Would love to work with you both someday. Have a great holiday season. Well, thank you very much, Chris. So he studied with you. That's cool, and he's doing voiceover work. So I guess you know what you're doing.
Look, Chris was always so creative, and he's making his own animated series that he puts out on YouTube.
Oh, very cool.
And as a teacher, you know that you're offering some skills, some structure, and so forth, but it's the student who has to actually give the performance, who actually has to go there. So
yeah,
Chris had a lot of creativity in a lot of different ways, and it was really fun working with him. And clearly pursuing his interests and his passion is paying off for him.
Yeah, I love that
That's wonderful to hear.
I love that he referenced that learning about our personal lives and struggles sort of helps him deal with his own stuff. Not that we're, we've said this, not that we're doctors or, some sort of,
Right.
We
can't tell you how to live.
No,
we can't
but
fix things.
But relating to, so that it's real life. It's like telling the stories of our individual journeys and the things that we've been through, and the things that we've accomplished. It just makes it a little bit more of, okay, there's no one way. There's no right and wrong. It's, each person's journey is different. And I'm glad that that this helps put things into perspective for him. Obviously, he's getting through his own stuff and creating, which is, that's what we want. That's what we want. We want more artists and creatives out there. And if he's in the voiceover world, that's great. I think teaching and coaching, that's fantastic. And when people are like, well, it's the business is so tough and there's so much competition, those are just like the people that just don't want the competition, right? I say, hey, if you're going to be in the business, that's great. Just remember, you need to be as good as I am if you want to beat me out on that role. So I'm not threatened by it. I'm like, bring it on, right? I'd rather you push me to be the top of my game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I did have a running joke. People would ask, so, what are you doing? And I would say, I've been teaching as well. And I always teach them wrong because I don't want the competition. But that's exactly the opposite. It's exactly the opposite. No, bring it on.
Yeah, bring it on. Yep.
Yeah. We're used to the idea of competition. We're not afraid of it. And our next letter is from Marty. Hello, Dan and Eric.
Hey.
For a while now, I've been making my own comics. I don't plan on making them public anytime soon since they are so personal to me, and I am honestly not that good of a writer or artist. Okay. The only two people who truly know about them are my psychologist and my best friend, who has been very supportive. though I think that's only because we are so close and she is just a sweet person. Hey, it's still good, though.
Mm-hmm.
Don't knock that. However, it has been fun to make them. That's also a good observation. The characters, like I always say, creativity is its own reward. The characters that I made and the stories I put them into became really important to me. My inspirations when I make those comics are the silly stories I enjoyed as a kid or still enjoy now, while putting a bit of myself into them. Again, they aren't great by any objective standard, but they still mean a lot to me, and maybe that's lame. But in this cruel world, sometimes what you create for yourself is all you have. My God, I love that statement.
Mm-hmm.
That is so wise. That's really, really well observed. I seek inspiration everywhere. Other pieces of media, my day-to-day life, my silly fantasies, looking at pieces of scenery and imagining what kind of stories could happen there, and try to mash them together into something personal and new. And as grateful as I am to you two, I am also grateful to all the other listeners who wrote in their own stories. Creativity and imagination have been a huge part of my life ever since I was very young, and I am happy that I finally found the outlet for it. It's not amazing, but it's meaningful and comforting to me, and it gave me, my friend, something fun to talk about, and maybe that's enough. Regards, Marty. I think there's some wisdom talking there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, some very, very, I love the passion of, and also just looking at this, I will say this. Marty keeps saying that it's not good. And Marty keeps saying that it's not amazing. And that, on one hand, this is important to do. On the other hand, it's not that great. I think you need to step away from it, Marty, and let it be enjoyed. I think your friend, yes, your best friend, sure, is being kind, sure. But it's also probably good. And you'll never know. And you have to stop judging your stuff because we all do it. We all do it as creative. There are some days that I listen to something I did and I go, I hate what I just did. I hate it. And then the next day I go, you know what? That's not so bad. I've been working on this one song back and forth for the last 3 weeks. And every other day, it's a good song. It's not a good song. It's a good song. It's not a good song. And I'm driving myself crazy. So, I'm just going to do it and put it out there. I would like to see more of the self-praise, the self-worth, and a little less of the doubt. I understand why it's there. It will always be there, but it's peppered throughout this letter, and I think you're probably better than you think you are.
I think that's probably true as well. But also, Marty, I want to praise you for understanding the real value of that creativity is something that no one else can put a value on because you already know what it means to you. And that's so important to hold on to. Now, if you really are wanting to pursue a career in a commercial industry of storytelling and getting your stuff out there and so on and so forth, well, then those other voices can weigh in and tell you why it should be more this way or that way. But that path isn't for everybody. And not everything should be created so it can be sold.
Right.
Or marketed or what have you.
But it can be shared. Your art can be shared.
But it can be shared.
Yes.
That's true. Yes. And again, backing up what Eric just said, yeah, you're probably better than you think. But I also understand if you never want to go there. There's certainly a precedent for that where people have created something and they considered it the background of their lives. Sometimes that story later unfolds to, and then people saw what they were doing and their work was regarded as amazing. But the most important thing is that you understand it's there for you. And that's a wonderful, wonderful resource to have. It's a wonderful exercise that you're engaged in. I love how you talk about looking to things in your environment for inspiration and mashing them together. That's very typical of a creative, artistic process. We all synthesize stuff from the world around us, from experiences to other examples of creativity. So keep enjoying that. Keep working with that. And maybe share it a little bit more. All right. What's next?
Okay, so the next letter we have is from Annalina. Dear Dan and Eric, The Four Kids shows have been a part of my life since I was 5. Well, that just tells you how old I am. Winx Club was the very first show I saw. It sparked my love for the shows hosted on the channel and got me through a very rough childhood. Throughout the years, I discovered more of the shows it had to offer, and they have helped me through all of my hardships to this very day. Both the shows and its voice actors have gotten me through parts of my life where I thought I wouldn't make it. I can't thank you both enough for what you have given me through the power of these, quote, silly little cartoons, end quote. I still go through many struggles in life, whether it's family-related, the stressors of the world, or my own self-doubts. But those cartoons and your podcast are a much-needed rest stop from my life. The laughter you've given me over the years, from Kaiba's long-winded egomaniac speeches, hey, to Yugi's reassurances and hope of trusting in yourself and those around you. The inspiration and experiences you talk about in the podcast give me the strength to continue forward, both in my personal journey and as an artist. Though I am sad that you both have to experience life's many obstacles and strife, hearing the people I grew up admiring talk about such deep situations and feelings about them makes me feel less alone. It reminds me that we all go through rough times or grew up in less than ideal situations, even the people we look up to. Thank you, Eric and Dan, again for all you have done for me and so many others, and the rest of the Four Kids crew. Thanks and best wishes. P.S. I'm very excited for Crossing the Gods, even if it takes a lifetime to come out. I know it'll be worth the wait. It won't take It won't take a lifetime. We are working on it. I promise. Very, very, very sweet letter. Yes, I mean this is the same thing that we were just talking about, of the fact that being able, Dan and I being able to share our own journey and our own challenges and our own, the things that were not ideal in our world.
We were really concerned we'd come off as pompous and just too navel-gazing.
And we don't let that define us, but it's definitely something that did shape us. And yes, you find the humor. Yes, laughter is great. These are great escapes from life too. But you've taken this and you've also applied it to real life. This is a letter of somebody who is understanding their worth and understanding that this situation in their life does not define them. And so I'm very touched by this letter. So thank you for that.
It's emblematic of a lot of responses we get from people, and which is not to say that it isn't wonderful and unique in its own right. And it's such a privilege to be able to interact with so many people who have these kinds of things to say. I couldn't help but laugh at the phrase "silly little cartoons,"
right?
Because meaning finds its way to you in perhaps the most unexpected places, And I have like a handful of. We were talking about Looney Tunes earlier, and there are moments from those cartoons that do stick with me, even if it's just like a funny thing, right, to give me a little joy when I'm feeling down, or like the admiration for how beautifully animated the early Tom and Jerry's were.
Yeah,
I know that's not Warner Brothers, but still the same kind of cartoon, and the the perspective of Bugs Bunny.
Oh,
he's nobody's fool, right?
Right.
and that was also a wonderful sort of archetype to have rattling around in your head, even as
and taught us all about classical music and opera.
Oh my God! I started listening to Rhapsody in Blue, which is a well-known piece. Go look it up if you haven't heard of it. Rhapsody in Blue, but I listened to it because it reminded me of the music from those cartoons.
Yeah, and I mean, I will admit that for a long time, whenever I would hear those songs not associated with the cartoon, I would picture
where's the cartoon?
I would picture the cartoon in my head while
yeah. Killed a wabbit. It's so good, so good. Well, and again, thanks for reassuring us that our revelatory conversations where we're talking about stuff that we've gone through didn't come off in a self-indulgent and negative way. And yes, Crossing the Gods. We were just talking about that letter from Marty doubting the worth of their comics, and I had taken a break from doing the visual imagery on Crossing the Gods. I'd been exploring some stuff. I put up a recent video on the channel about it. But now that I have a better approach to handle not the way I draw the characters, but the world they live in, and representing that visually, I'm going back and redoing stuff. So sometimes going back and redoing, knowing that you're not at a standard you want to be, is one thing, right? But it's all in the aim of getting it out there to you guys eventually, and it will get there. Thank you so much for that, Annalina. Or Annalina, please forgive us if we're mispronouncing any names here. And I think that's a wonderful note for us to end on for today.
Yeah, definitely. Some great letters. Wow.
Absolutely.
Very nice stuff.
And we have a number of letters we didn't get to, which I promise you we will. Our very next episode will be a continuation of reading some letters that you were so kind to give to us.
Yeah, thank you. We're definitely flattered by all of these great letters, and there's so many to go through. And we want to try to get to every one of them. But then again, you probably don't want to just hear our podcast of us reading letters. Then again, you might.
You never know.
You never know.
And if you want to write in a letter, you can go to adromadaproductions.com and you will see our main page. Up at the top to the right, you will see Heart of the Cards. If you hit that link, it'll send you to the page where you can put your letter in. And and we look forward to hearing from you and whatever you have to say. And as always, thanks to everyone who's been following the Heart of the Cards from week to week. We are so grateful to have your attention and your kind words. Please leave comments. I try to respond to them as best as I can. And we'll look forward to hearing more from you in the coming weeks. And we also look forward to any time that we can engage in a conversation about creativity, inspiration, and dealing with what we're dealt.
Thanks for listening to The Heart of the Cards with Dan Green and Eric Stuart. We hope this conversation in some way spoke to you. Whatever your journey, we look forward to crossing paths again in the next episode. This is Veronica Taylor, and on behalf of Andromeda Productions, we wish you well.
Andromeda, always a sound choice.